I'm thrilled to be here with my new friends, Julie Gray and Gidon Lev. This is the first time I've met them. I'm in their apartment in Ramat Gan, and I'm thrilled to be meeting them in person. I read this book a few months ago, The True Adventures of Gidon Lev, and just was thrilled to read it. I went right on to Goodreads and wrote a review that night, and I'd like to read to you that review. Imagine agreeing to help a Holocaust survivor take a lifetime of notes and memories and turn them into a gripping memoir. Well, many have done that, but how many can actually say that they've fallen in love with their elderly protagonist? This is precisely what happened to Julie Gray and Gidon Lev, a charming couple with all the quirks and asymmetries that go along with their 30-year age gap. Yet instead of trying to eradicate or deny that gap, the two celebrate it in a memoir that defies simple categorization as a Holocaust survivor's story. It's that and a lot more. Their romance becomes the center of a story that leads to retracing the steps of Gidon's life from Czechoslovakia, where he was born and imprisoned in a concentration camp when he was barely 5 years old. How he survives, how he loses most of his family, and at the end of the war finds himself in the US, then Canada, before heading with tremendous excitement to be a kibbutznik in Israel, gets to the heart of how this book was created, one memory at a time. Julie goes beyond the call of duty of any biographer or memoir collaborator. She plays a deeply therapeutic role that comes across on every page of this book. Gidon and Julie did plenty of traveling to create the scenes and lively dialogue for this book, back to Czechoslovakia, to the USA to retrace his younger life there, and to areas in the north of Israel where Gidon fought in the 1967 war and where he built a home and a large family with Susan, his beloved wife of 40 years. He was a widower until Julie appeared in his life to help him produce this book. I loved the raw honesty in this memoir, and I laughed in places at Gidon's antics and the roll your eyes way that Julie described them. But I also took in Julie's poignant message as not only Gidon's biographer, but his friend and loving life buddy. She writes that she sometimes felt the loss of her own identity in order to do so. In Japanese bunraku puppetry, the puppeteers go on stage dressed in black. You can see them move around their puppets, deftly bringing their art form to life. They are meant to be seen in the way a shadow is seen, a discrete presence. I think Julie has masterfully cast herself in a role akin to these bunraku puppeteers. You can feel her presence on every page, but she remains discreet throughout, keeping her own life story to the shadows in order to throw a spotlight on Gidon Lev. It's an incredible accomplishment and makes me want to know Julie Gray's own story all the more.
Thank you so much, Liane, and thank you so much, Julie and Gidon.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
And we so recommend this book to everybody to get a copy and to read it and just to be inspired.
So from the heart.
Thank
Really,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much. What do you say? What do you think?
I think it's fantastic.
You can't go wrong writing about this guy. That's you don't.
This is a living legend.
And the true adventures of Gidon continue before these pages and after these pages and every day. And we're privileged to be a part of them.
Thank you
And
so much.
I want to just add that our job as memoir writers is to not put ourselves center stage. That is the art of memoir writing, is to share the stage and to celebrate the other lives that made our life possible. And I think that's the message here for other memoir writers, is to see how beautifully you pulled that off with finesse and taste,
Oh, thank you
elegance
so much.
and humor.
I'm working on a memoir about my life before Gidon, to which this is really a prequel, called They Do Things Differently Here, which is a big understatement about Israel. But it's about my life before I met Gidon and with Gidon. So the True Adventures of Gidon Lev actually are going to have a sequel of more about me, but how Gidon has affected my life. So.
Will Gidon be in the book? Yes.
Oh, of course he will. He figures very importantly in I couldn't finish I was working on my memoir before I started writing this book, and I set it aside to work on Gidon's book, and it was after this book was done that I realized I could go back to my memoir, because now I have a bookend for it in my beloved Gidon Lev, who gave me a sense of purpose and meaning in my life, and so much laughter, as you can see, in my life. So yeah, they do things differently here is because of Gidon Lev.
Beautiful.
And this book actually won the best award for 2020.
Yes, The True Adventures of Gidon Lev was one of the best books of 2020 in the Kirkus Review, which is a very, Kirkus, that's very
prestigious.
Very prestigious. And this book also just won the Indie Reader Discovery Award of 2020 for the best biography. My mentor throughout writing the book was Yossi Klein Halevi, who was an Israeli-American writer who was a friend of ours and was so supportive of this book. So we're very lucky. We have an audiobook coming up of this, and a documentary film is being made. So we've been, it's all very beshert.
Let's hope. We're hoping.
And this was done without a major publishing house behind you?
Yeah, we published
She's
this.
the publishing house.
I'm the publishing house and the publicist and the marketing strategist and the blogger and the. But yeah, I pitched this book to literary agents in New York over time, and what I kept finding was people saying, "Well, there's too many books about the Holocaust," or "The Holocaust is too depressing," and I kept trying to say to them, this book is not about the Holocaust. It's about Gidon Lev, and that was a formative experience for him. But this book is not about that. It's both about the Holocaust and not at the same time. And I just couldn't seem to convince anybody. They said, "Oh, well, it sounds depressing." So I said, because Gidon was getting older and time was marching
Still he's
by.
getting older.
He's still getting us, as am I. I said, I don't have time to try to convince people that this story matters. I just need to write this book, because my biggest goal was to get it into Gidon's hands. And then other people after that, if they were interested, that would be great. But I really pushed this book for Gidon. So I succeeded in doing that. And now we're seeing interest in the book pick up more and more, along with these prestigious awards. So I'm hoping to kind of prove the traditional publishing industry wrong in a way, that they were making an assumption that a Holocaust survivor would be a depressing person. But Gidon is bigger than the worst thing that ever happened to him.
It's a triumph of survival.
That's right. And any survivor of any terrible hardship or bad experience is bigger than that.
And
you cannot reduce a
that's
person.
Become a message in your new book that you're writing too, that you're bigger than the things that happen to you
Absolutely,
as well.
absolutely.
Do you think that you learned that from?
I learned that from Gidon, but and Gidon taught me that about events in my own life. I have grieved the loss of a sibling through suicide. I have had many personal losses in my own life. And I refuse to let those things define me. But I really learned to articulate that because of Gidon. So we're both survivors in different ways. We're both survivors of hardship. But Gidon really gave me the pragmatic jumping off point that I don't want to be defined by my losses, and Gidon shouldn't be defined by his experience. And yet Gidon and I both together, I felt, had a responsibility to talk about. One of the reasons I made Aliyah, we were talking earlier about the losses that I had been through from friends and then my brother's loss, was that I was the person whose brother had killed himself, That became part of my identity. Everywhere that I went, people felt sorry for me, and which did not help me heal from it. That became kind of part of who I was. And when I met Gidon, here was this person that the first thing that people would say about him, and often he of himself, was that I am a Holocaust survivor. And then other things would follow. And so through my relationship with Gidon and writing this book, I think we both learned a lot about how we define ourselves and how we allow ourselves to be defined and controlling our own narratives. So Gidon experienced the Holocaust, as millions of others did, and he has chosen to write about it and talk about it, and I gave that voice and platform. But Gidon, as I said earlier, is really more than a person. He's an experience. He's a phenomena. He's a force of nature. And yeah, he has been the wind beneath my wings to help me claim my own narrative. And I think vice versa. I think we really are Beshert.
You so complement each other.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, the whole question of survival is never a simple thing, never just easy, never just plain. It entails a great many struggles with oneself and with other people, and with knowledge and lack thereof. And in my life, when I first came to Julie, actually, I said, it's true, I am a survivor, but the book isn't actually centered on the Holocaust survival. I survived a few other things besides surviving the Holocaust.
But that word is so freighted.
Yeah, it's
when you use that word in any context, people.
I don't even like in the use of Nitzol Shoah and Sored Shoah. I must have Sored Shoah rather than Nitzol. Nitzol, you were saved. By who was I
One
saved?
last question, if I may, and that is,
Only last.
the book came out in COVID times. How did COVID change the direction of the narrative, change the story in any way? Did it?
I didn't let it. I was planning before COVID to, buy 100 of these books and put them in the trunk of my car and just go to Florida and go to every, and New York and just talk and just give out this book. That's what I was going to do, real grassroots. And then, nobody could travel. We couldn't do that. So I just segued quite naturally into, okay, so we can Zoom about it and we can talk about it. And I went on the Jewish Book Council and I, entered the Kirkus thing and got recognized for that. And I just decided to just roll with it. I was not going to let the whims of literary agents change the trajectory of Gidon's story, and I wasn't going to let COVID change that, and I wasn't going to let anybody stand in the way of getting this really worthy story out there. So it should have changed our trajectory, but it actually empowered me, because here I am all the way in Israel. I can't so easily just go to New York or go to Florida anyway. But I had planned to really road trip this book and talk everywhere. But so Zoom enables us to do that.
It's amazing.
So actually,
done a great
it was
deal
a
of
big
Zooming.
blessing, really.
it was a
for you.
blessing in
Yes.
disguise.
Yes.
So everything there is a plus and a minus,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
We know already in our life. So
This
you
is
gotta
We went with it.
go with the flow a little bit.
And COVID also gave us the opportunity to do a lot of YouTubing. We did dances.
Yeah,
We did a fake newscast. We did.
Where can we watch these?
We have our own
channel.
channel on
What is it
YouTube.
called?
You can. I can't remember. Loving Life Buddy, I think. I can. You just look up Julie Gray. We have our own channel.
Julie, this book had rave reviews in both Jerusalem Post and Jerusalem Report.
Yes, thank
And it
you.
was a wonderful article.
Yes, thank you so much.
And
We were thrilled.
Liane's review, I've never ever heard such a magnificent review.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
I
We
think
we
that's
were both
awesome.
just
but
Liane's review.
Alia.
We were both just blown away. We really
No,
didn't
it's
know how
good.
the book would be received. Because it's a very experimental book. It's a book about writing a book about a guy, right? And so the book, it's not a straightforward narrative. And I knew that I was messing with a genre of memoir. It's not exactly a memoir, and it's not exactly a biography.
Well, you were breaking
I broke
through,
all
breaking through
the
the
rules.
ceiling to create a new genre.
Definitely, from a writerly perspective and from a craft perspective, I definitely broke all the rules with this book. And I feared that some people might be very upset and say, how dare you take the story of a Holocaust survivor and make it funny and touching in parts? How dare you take the story of a Holocaust survivor and be in it at all yourself?
Well, you, as a writing teacher, as a coach, as somebody who edits other people's books, who gives advice or actually counsel to screenwriters, you know a lot about the craft.
Yeah.
You know the backstory to the craft, and you brought all those skills to this book, which makes it so phenomenal. That
thank you.
It's a writer's book. It's a book for writers to savor, and I thank you.
And my advice to other writers, because I broke the rules, and because this book has done so well, break the rules. But first, you gotta know them. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much.